San Francisco just pulled off a major robbery in my opinion. At the buzzer beater of the NFL trade deadline, they traded a third-round pick for the former second overall pick in Chase Young. During Young's first year in the league in 2020, he went off and looked like an instant superstar. He led all rookies in sacks and fumbles. He had 7.5 sacks this year and was named to the Pro Bowl, as well as being named the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. Going into the 2021 season, much was expected out of Chase Young, and he didn't live up to those expectations. He only recorded 1.5 sacks before suffering a major injury, which limited him not only in 2021, but also in 2022. But now, with Chase Young seemingly healthy for the first time in a couple of years, we see glimpses of what made him an NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year and a Pro Bowl player. He's going off this year. When we look at Young's stats, compared to a player like Nick Bosa, he's actually doing a little bit better. He has 5 sacks on the year compared to Bosa's 3. So in this video, I want to dive a little bit more deeply into the player Chase Young is right now, and how he could be an instrumental part in changing around San Francisco's season that initially looked so promising. Initially, the first thing that stands out to me about Chase Young is he's a true number one defensive end in this league. He stands at 6'5", weighing 265 pounds. His get off is absurd too. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better player to go opposite of Nick Bosa and fit into this Chris Kasarik defensive line. Chris Kasarik loves players that can burst up the field, and on this play, we can see him bursting up the field and getting to the quarterback, Tyrod Taylor. And while this is just a simple sack, you'll see throughout this video that Chase Young is a really complete player. So starting out, I do want to point out how quickly Chase Young is able to get off the ball. Here, we can see Young's moving before even offensive line players, and this is a big reason why he's able to get to the quarterback without even being touched. This skill set in the NFL is rare and reminds me of San Francisco's old defensive end, Dee Ford. And during that season, they were able to make it all the way to the Super Bowl on the back of their rush. And with Chase Young entering into the San Francisco lineup, I will expect these players to be more productive. Not just Young, but Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, and Arik Armstead. A play I believe illustrates this perfectly is when Chase Young pressures Tyrod Taylor. And while he doesn't get the full credit for the sack, he does force Tyrod into the arms of another defender. This is the benefit of having stars across your defensive line. And now you have all stars basically. Arik Armstead, Javon Hargrave, Nick Bosa, and Chase Young. And Young is playing some of the best football of his career. And I believe this can only get better with San Francisco because Young fits San Francisco's scheme so well. Here we can see Young running a simple stunt pattern, but Chris Kasarik loves to run these patterns with his defensive end, and here he's able to get to Tyrod on the QB draw. This is exactly how you draw it up, and Young's athleticism makes this a nightmare for offensive linemen. While Young is usually thought of as a pure pass rusher, he's also doing a lot of other things on the film, including stuffing the run and dropping in coverage. While San Francisco probably isn't going to put Young in too many of these situations, I do think it's a testament to Young's athleticism. But one thing that keeps popping out on the film is how complete Young is as an edge rusher. We see his first step here, but there's more to it than that. He hits the tackle with the hezi and then uses his hands to fight off the tackle immediately. This is high level stuff, and he gets to the quarterback before he can find anyone open. This is exactly what San Francisco has needed these last couple of weeks, getting to the quarterback. And with Young opposite of Bosa and having the interior full of guys like Hargrave and Arik Armstead, this defense will be a nightmare. Equally as important to San Francisco on the defensive line player is how good they are against the run. And Young has been excellent this year. We can see on this play, he's able to fight off the tackle and stuff the runner. Perhaps something that's often not thought about when you talk about a player is their work ethic on the field and how hot their motor runs. On this play, for example, we can see Chase Young gets to the quarterback, not because of his initial push, but because of how he chases him down. While right here, this type of hustle results in a sack, on other plays, it could result in a touchdown being saved or a screen being stuffed. Young is looking like his old self to me. While we've covered many aspects to Young's game, including his ability to stuff the run and outmaneuver offensive linemen, right here we see the unique blend of size, strength, and speed that got him drafted number 2 overall. Here we see him engage with the tackle and just drive his man right back into Russell Wilson's lap. And this is what causes the sack on this play. Wilson has to try to escape. Young then has the wherewithal to throw off his man and then hustles enough to get involved on the sack. These are the type of things you don't necessarily see on the stat sheet, but when you watch the film, you have to go wow. And while he's not leading the league in sacks, he is putting up some crazy pressures. He's coming in 5th in the league, right behind Nick Bosa, with 40 pressures on the year. So while this season tells some of Young's story, I do think it's important to mention the type of player Young has been throughout his entire career, because he has had a 2-year downturn, and right now, he's playing some of his best football, and that's saying something. In high school, he was phenomenal. As a senior, he had 19 sacks, 118 tackles, 5 forced fumbles, and 2 defensive touchdowns. That helped his team go undefeated and win the championship. Young was considered one of the best defensive ends across the entire nation. He had 40 college offers, including from Ohio, where he decided to play. When examining Young's career at Ohio, one of the most promising things is how much he improved year over year. His freshman year, he had 3.5 sacks and 1 forced fumble. His sophomore year, 10.5 sacks and 1 forced fumble. His junior year had to be his breakout year though. He had 16.5 sacks and 7 forced fumbles. Young, during his junior season, was such a prolific player, he was named a Heisman finalist, and this was the only 9th time this happened for a defensive player since 1982. After Young's crazy junior season, he did decide to enter the NFL draft, and scouts agreed on one thing: Young was a rare talent. He had some crazy long limbs, speed, athleticism. He was a heat-seeking missile basically on every play. But there was the question of his field awareness, and sometimes he telegraphed his pass rush moves. Nonetheless, the Washington Commanders did select Young, and he went off, as I mentioned earlier, became the Defensive Rookie of the Year. And while he has had to battle through injuries, namely an ACL tear, I do see Young as being the player Washington drafted 2nd overall. He looks explosive and already has 5 sacks on the season and is number 5 in the NFL in pressure rate. This is a pairing for San Francisco that can really get their defense back on track. But these are just my thoughts on this Chase Young trade, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you think it's a good trade, a robbery? I'd like to hear basically how you think Young is going to fit in with the San Francisco's defense going forward, and if you think it will solve their issues. But as always, I do hope you have a great rest of your day, and it would mean a ton to me if you liked and subscribed.